Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf. ARACHIN Daf Yud Beis, we begin right on top, Iboiluhu. So, as we learned yesterday, the Leviim would sing their Shira, vocally and instrumentally, during the Hakrova of the Karbonos, specifically when they would do the Nisachim of the wine, pour the wine on the Mizbeach, which typically, accompanied the Karbonos Tzibur. Now, the Halacha allows the Nisachim to be offered at a later date. Rashi brings the Gemara, Menachos. You can even do it at night. You can do it tomorrow. So the actual, Tamid is today, but the Nisachim tomorrow. What happens if that's exactly what took place? Nisachim were separate from the Karban. Does it earn a Shira, or perhaps not, because it's not together with the actual Karban? Iboilu. That exactly was the question posed in the Beis HaMedrash. Nisachim habayim b'fnei atzmon. We have a case where Nisachim are offered independent of the Karban. Again, Rashi explains, on the top line. Rashi says they offered a Karban Tzibur, but they didn't have wine available. Rather, they brought it tomorrow, which you can do. We learned back in Menachos. Menachos Neskeim is teaching us, but Laila, Menachos Neskeim for Lamachar at night, next day. So this wasn't at night, of course, because, as we learned yesterday, the Shira is specific to daytime. So they brought it during daytime, but at a different time, different day, right? Does it require Shira? Perhaps there's no Shira requirement. What are the factors at play? Says the Gemara, on the one hand, we have yesterday's halacha. Shira is meant to accompany the pouring of wine. Okay, so in this case it qualifies. Amrinan, go ahead and do the Shira. You have wine being poured on the Mizbeach, do the Shira. Or you can say, no, you need the full package. The wine that accompanies a Karban, Idilma al Achila, for actual eating, Ushtiya, and drinking. It's a reference to the, Rashi says in the third line, Karban, which is the Achila, the consumption of the solid food. Unasacham, that's the drinking, so to speak. So only when it comes together as a package, Karban with Nisachim, then comes the Shira. Al Achila, Ushtiya, Amrinan, then we express Shira. But in this case, it's only drinking. Perhaps there's no Shira. Tashmai comes a raya. So we had this brisa yesterday. Rabbi Yossi Megalgul Schosliam Zakei Hashem attaches a good event to a good day, a day which has already been titled as a Yom Zakei, and the same in the reverse. Hashem will make a negative happenance occur on a day which was already tagged as a negative day. And the Brisa went on to explain, and actually it's very important for the Gemara coming up in today's daf. So perhaps let's go back to the Brisa of yesterday. It was Yud Aleph Amud Beis. So when the lines widen, it's the second wide line. We have Tashma, Rabbi Yossi, Megalgun Schusliam Zakai, V'chadliam Chayv. Amru, the following was related regarding the tragic happenings of Churban Beis HaMikdash. K'shecharav habayis. So when the Mikdash was destroyed by Rishayna, the first time around, the first Beis HaMikdash, it was actually on Tisha B'Av, right, which is the epitome of a Yom Chayev. It was established as such when the Meraglim returned to Bnei Yisrael in the Midbar, and they were upset, and they had this negative presentation about Eretz Yisrael, and they cried. And Hashem says, well, you're crying now, it's going to be established as a historic time of mourning. And that's exactly what happened. The Tisha B'Av was the day that the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed both times. And the Brisa continues to give us more specifics regarding that time. Motzei Shabbos Haya was Motzei Shabbos, meaning it was Sunday. Motzei Shvius Haisa, it was Motzei Shvius, the year after Shvius, the Shvius being the 7th year, so this is the next year, the first of the next 7th cycle. And it was Mishmata Sheyarav Haisa, who was in charge of the Beis HaMikdash, which group of Kohanim were on rotation, Yayarav. Vayu Kohanim Levim Amdim Duchan, and they were standing on the stage, Shira, and they were expressing Shira. Which Shira were they saying? Mashira Amru. So technically it was Sunday, they should have express the chapter Hashem Aretz Maloya, which is appropriate for Sunday, but actually they didn't. Vayoshev alem es oinam, which is from Wednesday. Urotzim etzmisem, and they didn't get a chance to finish it until they were overtaken by the enemy. Okay, that was the brisa in full. Let's hop back over to today's daf, which pretty much excerpts that brisa in short. Hashma Reisi Eimer. So we're at 7-8 lines from the top. Megalgan Choslim Zaka v'chulu. So they sang. Now, what was the occasion for singing? Hai shira ma'avinte. What was the context of that shira? Ilay mad eilas chayva. Was it to accompany a mandatory korban, like a tamid? Mihava? Did they even have access to those? They didn't have eilas chayva at that point. Habeshiva sabatamas, right? But la tamid, we have a mishnah back in Tainus that it was already 3 weeks since they brought a tamid, right? Shiva sabatamas was batla tamid. They couldn't bring the tamid. They didn't have access to the lambs, so it wasn't feasible to have a eilas chayva. The only option remaining is that it was a voluntary oila. They found a cow or something which is not suitable for the tamid, but they brought it as a oila. Whatever you can do, right? So, are you suggesting it was oilas nedava, and that is what triggered the shira? But we already conclude yesterday. V'atani Rav Mari, Breda Rav Kahana Deloit Sricha. There's no shira for an oilas nedava. So why were they singing? Elav the nesach. The only option available is nesach. They had wine available, and they poured the wine. You can't bring the korban, at least the wine, right? So they sang along with it. So what does that tell us about nesachim triggering wine? That apparently nesachim, even independent of a korban, earns a shira. Amar Rava, no. Some say Rav Ashi, no. But this, how can you suggest that it was in fact a proper shira? Look, it was the wrong shira. Shira diyemei, the proper shira for Sunday is Lashem Ha'aretz Maloya. And they weren't singing that. Vayoshev alem es oinam, which they were actually singing, that's from Wednesday's portion. B'shira da'arba'a b'shabu, that's from the fourth day in Shabbos, it's Wednesday. Who? Else, you have to say it wasn't really an official shira. Ilya means like a mournful chant. Ba'almahu denafil b'mayu, they started expressing this mournful chant. It was sort of put in their mouth. It was an expression reflective of what was going on around them, being attacked by the enemy, and they were sort of relating to that with this pasuk. So it wasn't really a proper shira. Okay, so it's unrelated to our discussion. But they were staying on the stage. Brisa clearly describes them as standing on the stage. Well, that's not an issue, because Rish Lakish already told us that you can do that any time. Rish Lakish, Levium could choose to do shir even without a korban, get up on the stage and sing to Hashem. Says them, okay, so if they have the green light to sing whenever they want, so why not do that for Nesachim? Why are we, asking whether or not there was shira by Nesachim, independent of a korban? Just get up and sing. You can do it anyways. But Nesachim nami lema. The answer is no. This is worse. Nafik minei churba. It's going to create confusion, misunderstanding. People might say, look, this is a voluntary shira being sang with Nesachim, so let's assume every shira being sung, with a proper Nesachim, with a proper korban, is really just voluntary, and you could just, it's up to you, right? Arbitrary. So, in order to avoid that type of confusion, of course, they would not allow an unrequired shira to come along with, nesachim that are being poured separate from a korban, if in fact nesachim do not require a formal shira. So yeah, on the one hand, you can do shira whenever, because there's no room for confusion. People see, look, they're getting up without any korban, great. But our question pertains to nesachim that come independent of a korban, where we would not allow just plain singing, because then it could confuse people and mislead them to think that every shira with nesachim, even with a regular korban, is just a rishus. So the only allowance would be if it's really required. And that's our question, is it required or not? If it's required, great. If not, don't do it. So we still leave that question open-ended. Okay, once on the topic of the timing and the dating of the Churban Beis Hamikdash, let's go back to that brisa. In fact, analyze it in full, in detail, with all the numbers, the context of the historical events that surrounded it. Gufa, Rabbi Yossi, Megalgon, Schosleim Zakai, V'chul. So the first destruction, right? The first Beis Hamikdash was destroyed on a Sunday, b'moitzoi Shvius, the year after Shemitah. Shemitah is the 7th of the 7-year cycle. This took place the next year. What's called year 1, right? The first of the next cycle. Ask the Gemara, how is that possible? That it happened on year 1. B'Rishona, the destruction of that first Beis Hamikdash, b'moitzoi Shvius, mi mishkachla, how could it have possibly taken place on year 1? We have a pasuk where Yecheskel Hanavi is describing a vision that took place way later, and he presents 2 timelines. He posts 2 time frames with respect to his experience. He says, "V'oksiv, first of all, be'esrim v'chamesh shana l'goluseinu." It's taking place 25 years into our Golus. Okay, so it's 25 years after the Golus began. And at what point in the year? Which Rosh Hashanah, beginning of the year, at the 10th of the month. Now we're going to see in a minute, that can't be Rosh Hashanah, which is the 1st of Tishrei. It must be Yovel. Yovel is the year that follows Shemitah. So we have 7 years, 7 year being Shemitah. The next year is Yovel. So, meaning every 50 years around, right, 7 times 7, comes a 50th year, which is Yovel. So a Yovel is a 50-year chunk, right, comprised of 7 sets of 7 Shemitahs, concluding with the 50th, which is a Yovel, where you would not plow, not plant, not tend to your farms. In fact, the farms will go back to the owners if they were purchased within that time period. The slaves are freed, right? And that happens on Yom Kippur. That's when they blow the shofar. So that sort of kicks off the Yovel year. So the beginning of the year, meaning the Yovel events are sort of expressed. They commence on Yom Kippur instead of Rosh Hashanah. So Yom Kippur is like the head of the year, beginning of the year. But Rosh Hashanah b'Esel HaChodesh, that's a Yovel year. So again, it's 25 years into Golus, and here's another time frame: 14 years post-destruction. 14 years after the city was overtaken, destroyed, Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. So first, let's establish the type of year. He says it was Rosh Hashanah on day 10 of Tishrei. Ezehi Shana, can we figure out what year has Rosh Hashanah fall out on the 10th? Rosh Hashanah b'Asel HaChodesh. There's only one option, that's Yovel. Have Yomer Ze Yovel. Rashi explains about 15 lines from the top. He says that's when the events happen. That's when the slaves leave. Vaz niris, then it's apparent, then it's expressed. The Yovel is expressed. Vaz niris Yovel. So that's the commencement of the Yovel experience. Okay, so he's indicating that he's on a Yovel year. What else? He says, I'm standing at 25 years after Golus began and 14 years after the Churban. So perhaps before we continue, let's just figure out the numbers here. Let's get the full picture. So we have Nebuchadnezzar taking over the kingship at year 1. His year 1, that's when he began. The next year, which was the second year to Nebuchadnezzar's reign, he went ahead and he challenged Yehoiakim, who was the king of the Yidden. and he overtook him, Kibush Yoyakim. Okay, so now Yoyakim was subservient to Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, so year 2 of Nebuchadnezzar, he picks a fight with Yoyakim, overtakes him. A little while later, it didn't work out, and Nebuchadnezzar actually replaced Yoyakim with Yoyachin, who was Yoyakim's son. A couple of years down the road, Nebuchadnezzar came once again and he attacked the Yidden Eretz Yisrael. This was year 8 of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, and it was only year 7 of Yoyachin. At that time, he took a whole huge group of people into Golus. So Golus actually took place in 2 separate phases. First phase was Golus Yoyachin. Okay, year 7 of Kibush Yoyakim, which is actually the same as year 8 of Nebuchadnezzar. It's one and the same, just different points of references, right? And ultimately, later on, 11 years later, was the actual Churban Abayis, the final Golus, the final exile, destruction of Yerushalayim, Beis HaMikdash, and the complete exiling of our nation, en masse. The Gemara speaks about the first Golus being the Golus of the Cheresh v'Hamasker. Many Talmud Chachamim were taken into Golus at that point to prepare. It was a chesed Hashem did to prepare Bavel with yeshivas, with Torah, in preparation for the mass Golus that took place 11 years later. Now, Yechezkel was part of that first Golus, which is called Golus Yoyachin. So when he speaks about something that occurred 25 years into our Golus, he means his personal Golus, meaning counting 25 years from the first, from Golus Yoyachin. Now, as we're going to see later, the number 25 starts the year after the Golus Yoyachin took place. So he's talking about 25 years into Golus. Okay, important to keep that in mind. So 25 years is not including the actual year of Golus. He's speaking 25 years into our Golus experience. So year 1 of his 25 starts right after Golus Yoyachin the next year. Now he also makes another point of reference. It's been 14 years since the Churban Abayis, which is really one and the same, right? Because Churban Abayis was 11 years after Golus Yoyachin, right? Plus 14, a total of 25. It's the same number, just a different point of reference. Now, by the way, this only works if the number 14, in reference to Churban Abayis, starts from the year after the Churban, meaning you have the year of the Churban, and then you start 1, 2, 3, etc. So he's talking 14 years post-destruction, once we've already experienced destruction, in a state of destruction. Okay? So ultimately that's going to be the correct understanding of his numbering, but the Gemara will have some back and forth till we get to this clarity. Okay, so again, just for clarity's sake, we have Nebuchadnezzar showing up at his year 1. Next year, he picks a fight with Yoyakim. That's called first year of Kibush Yoyakim. Then it was transferred to Yoyachin. And at year 7, which happens to be year 8 of Nebuchadnezzar, the first Golus Yoyachin took place. Okay, now not counting that year, you add 11 years, then we have Churban Abayis, which was year 18 of Kibush Yoyakim, which corresponds to year 19 of Nebuchadnezzar. He's always a year ahead because he started a year earlier, right? And then plus 14 more years, that's when the Nevuah of Yechezkel takes place, the one that's being described in this pasuk. Now, he says he's standing on Yovel. So we're going to try to backtrack, and based on this information, figure out what year within the Shemitah cycle did the Churban Abayis take place. The Brisa states it as being year 1 of the Shemitah cycle. Let's see how that works. So if Nebuchadnezzar Yechezkel is on Yovel, now the Gemara at this point figures that the number 14 that he's talking about actually began from Churban Abayis itself, not from the year after, as we had said. That's going to be the Maskana. But now the Havamid, the Gemara figures that year 1 of his 14 is the actual year of the Churban, That's a little problematic. Because if he's on a Yovel year, which is year 1 of the Shemitah cycle, Yovel follows year 7, right? So, we backtrack. Let's see in the Gemara. If in fact the Churban occurred on year 1 of a Shemitah cycle, and now we're standing at year 1 as well, which is the Yovel. So if you count back, to get back to a year 1 of a Shemitah cycle 2 cycles ago, that's 15 years, not 14. We're short a year. If you count from this year 1 to the previous year 1, that's Tamni, it's 8. Go back to the previous year 1, at 8 plus 7, that's 15, not 14. Chamesh Esrei Havin is 15. We're short a year. Amar Avina, no, his 14. The count starts a year after the Churban. So including the year of the actual Churban, it is 15. It works perfectly. Amar Avina, Ba'ar Esrei Shana Achar Shana Shuksayir. Yechezkel is relating that he's now standing at year 14, aside from the actual Churban year. So you have the year of Churban plus 14, so it's a total of 25. Ask the Gemara. So the Gemara again figures that the other number, the year 25 that he's talking, from the time of Golus Yoyachan, actually included the year of the Golus Yoyachan as well. Right? So now, we're actually over our limit. So if you're telling me that it's really 15 years from the Churban, including the year of Churban itself, it's 15. Shana, so why is it only 25 years since Golus Yoyachan? Esrim v'sheish having, it's really 26. Right? Because if you start counting from Golus Yoyachan, which was year 7, up until not including the year of Churban Abayis, so you're going from 7 to 17, that's 11. Plus the year of Churban and the 14, that's another 15. 15 plus 11 is 26. So why is he saying 25? So why is he citing 25 as the number from the start of Golus Yoyachan until today? Esrim v'sheish havin, it's really 26. Esrim v'sheish havin. And we're assuming that he's including, when he spoke to 25, he started from the actual Golus Yoyachan year, not the year after. The Gemara will change that soon. Because really it is 26. But if you start from the year following Golus Yoyachan, it's really 25. That's going to be the answer. But at this point, we don't know that yet. So again, from the Churban till today, it's 15. From Golus Yoyachan, including the year of Golus Yoyachan, till the Churban, it's 11. 7 to 17 is 11. Then from 18 all the way down till where we're standing today, 18 plus 4, the actual year 18 plus 14 is 15. 15 plus 11 is 26. As we learned in a Brisa and Seder Olam, this is the timeline. Golus b'Sheva, the first phase of Golus Yoyachan was at year 7 of Kibush Yoyakim. Golus b'Shmoina, which corresponded to year 8 of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, as we explained. It's all the same thing, just a different point of reference. That was the first phase of Golus. So it was at year 7. Golus b'Ches, the final phase of Golus, the Churban Beis HaMikdash, was Golus b'Ches, was year 18 of Kibush Yoyakim. So Golus b'Ches, which actually happened to be year 19 of Nebuchadnezzar's reign. So if we calculate from year 7, year of Golus Yoyachan, up until the Churban, not including 18, that's the next count. But from 7 to 17 is 11. Mishei, from year 7, Ba'ad Tamni 3 until 18, not including, so 7 to 17 is Chatzri's 11 years. Plus the year of Churban, plus the additional 14, V'chamesh Esrei, plus the 15, gets you to 26. Esrim v'sheish havin. Amach Ravina, says Ravina like this. I'm going to prove to you that the total number, the 25, does not start from the actual year of Golus Yoyachan. That's separate. Okay, so it's really 25 plus that year. You're right, it is 26, but 25 does make sense because it starts from the year following the Golus, which is really year 8 of Yakim. So 8 to 17 is 10, plus 15 is 25. So basically, Ravina was the one who told us that the number 14 starts after Churban HaBayis. So it's really 15 since the actual Churban year. That was Ravina's Chidush. Now he was challenged with this new kasha. You're going to end up with 26 years. Because 15, if it's 15, so it's 15 and 11, it's 26. Ravina responds, according to you, you're challenging my assertion that the Churban stood out on its own. It was not counted into the 14. You're challenging that. According to you, why is it any better? You're also going to end up with an extra year. Look. According to the understanding of the Gemara at this point, when the Brisa spoke about the second Golus occurring during year 18 of Yakim and 19 of Nebuchadnezzar, we thought it was one and the same thing, but at this point the Gemara figured it two separate events, that actually there was a third Golus. There were 3 phases to Golus, year 7, year 18, and year 19. So if that's correct, look, Golu Nami, they also had an additional Golus, B'Chasra at year 19, which was the final Golus with the destruction of Beis HaMikdash. So now even according to you, you're stuck with an extra year. Because from the time of the first Golus, which was year 7, until 19, is 12. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Not including year 19. Right? Because year 19 is the year of the Churban that is counted as part of the 14 following the Churban, according to you, right? They had an additional Golus during year 19. After the previous Golus at 18 and the previous Golus at 7. So Misheva Tishseri. Let's count from 7 to 19, not including 19. That was the year of the Churban. Tishseri, it's from 7 to 18 is 12. Plus the 14. Va'abasri, plus the 14, the year of Churban and the following 13. So you have, you're again over the limit. Tishseri Va'arbisri, that's Esem Rishis Havin. You're also stuck at 26. Oh, so you have to say, apparently, that the year of Golus itself, Golus Yoyachin, year 7, stands alone. Was not included in this calculation. When Yecheskel spoke about being 25 years, Li Golusenu, he meant 25 years of Golus experience. Year 1 beginning after the actual Golus took place. Elamais say, how are you going to resolve this issue? That 25 is Levar, not counting in, aside, Mishata de Goloba, the year of the actual Golus, the year the actual Golus took place. So you trim off for a year, so you're back at 25. Okay, Didinami. Likewise, according to my approach, once we apply this solution, it all works out. Levar Mishata de Goloba. Right? The number 25 is Levar Mishata de Goloba, aside from that year 7, the year of Golus. So Golus Yoyachin was at year 7. We don't count that into the 25. We begin the next year 8. So from 8 to 18 is 11, plus 14 is 25. Okay, so according to Ravina, the number 14, since Churban, that count begins from the year following the Churban. Right, so it's 14. Plus you add the 11 from the Golus until the Churban, from year 8 to year 18. 11 plus 14 is 25. Says the Gemara, okay, so you resolve this difficulty, but what about that question of 19? If there was an additional Golus in 19, then we're really stuck. So either way, we're stuck on that first question, Tishseri. The question relating to 19, the Ravina Kashkwan, is very difficult to resolve because even with all these trimmings, we don't count in the year of Golus Yayachin. We say the year of Churban Abayis was pre-14, not counted into the 14. With all these arrangements, we're still stuck with an extra year, because if in fact there was another Golus at 19, so the Churban only happened a year later than we thought. So now you have to count from year 8 of Yayachin, which is the year following that first Golus, all the way till 19. Right? So from 8 to 19 is 12. And then you have the additional 14, which is 26. Says the Gemara, no, we misunderstood. Misavers, do you think Shalosh Golus Havu, there were 3 phases to exile? No. It was really only 2. And these cross numbers are just different points of reference. The first Golus, the first of the 2 was Golu B'Sheva L'Kibush Yayakim, a year 7 of Yayakim, Shishmoina of Chanetzah, which corresponded to year 8 in Chanetzah's reign. And there was another phase. The final Golus was at 18/19, Golu B'Shmoina Esrei L'Kibush Yayakim. The final Golus en masse was at year 18 of Yayakim, Shichas of Chanetzah, which happened to be the 19th year of Chanetzah's reign. As we learned, Shana Rishana Kibush Ninveh, the first year of his reign, he conquered Ninveh, which was the headquarters of Ashur, the capital of Ashur. Then he went on to pick a fight with the Jews. It turned out when Beis Shnia, Allah B'Kibush Yayakim, went up and he conquered and he overtook Yayakim. Okay, so it's pretty clear. The Churban occurred at year 1 of Shemitah. Nevuas Yecheskel was also year 1 of a Shemitah, was a Yovel actually. And Yecheskel referred to the Churban as occurring 14 years earlier, which works because you have the year of Churban on the first day of the Shemitah, followed by 14 more years, taking us around 2 cycles of Shemitah. So back at year 1, perfect. And it was also 25 years after Golus Seinu, our Golus, meaning Cheskel's personal Golus, which occurred during the first Golus Yayachin. So if you start year 25 from the year after that Golus, which is year 8 of Kibush Yayakim, so 8 till the Churban, which is year 18, is 11, plus 14 is 25. Says the Gemara, V'chein B'Shniya, same exact configuration. The day of the week, the year of the Shemitah cycle, etc., all happened again, repeated itself exactly the same way the second time around during the Churban Beis Hamikdash Hashem. V'chein B'Shniya. Says the Gemara, hold it. How is that going to work? How is that to be that the second Mikdash was destroyed on Motzei Shvius, which again means the first year of a Shemitah cycle? It's not going to work out mathematically. Look, let's take a close look at the numbers. Bayis Sheni Kamakam. How long? For how many years was the second Beis Hamikdash standing? We know it's 420 years. Arba Meo Veshim. Okay, so let's break it down into 50-year pieces. How many Yevels do we have? Very simple, 8, right? Each Yevel is 50 years. Arba Meo, so the 400 are comprised of 8 Yevels, Tamani Yevel, leaving us with 20 years. Okay, so out of the 20, 14 are 2 Shmitas. Arbis Rei, the 14 are Trei Shavua, 2 weeks, 2 sets of 7, 2 Shmitas. What's the remainder? 6 years. So we're at the 6th year of the Shemitah. We're not at the first year. Pashulu Shis. So we're left over with 6. Havali B'Shita B'Shavua. So we're at 6, at year 6 of the Shemitah cycle. The next year we had the Churban, which is the actual Shemitah year, not year 1 of a Shemitah cycle. So we're 1 year off. Hamani Rabidi. The answer is we're going like Rabbi Yehuda. The Amor says there's a big machlekes how to calculate the Yovel cycle. So every 7 years we have a Shemitah. Every 7 cycles we have a Yovel. According to Rabbanon, it's year 50. And after year 50, we start again, year 1 of a Shemitah cycle. So Yovel is basically its own entity. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's different. He says Yovel really has a double identity. He's Yovel, but he also counts as year 1 of the next cycle. Right? So you check off the first year, give it to the Yovel, and then after Yovel we start from year 2 of the Shemitah cycle. So it's sort of all overlap. The Yovel counts as Yovel, but it doesn't have its own year. It's already the first year of the next cycle. The Amar says, Shnas Chamishim, the year 50, Oilul kind of counts both ways. It counts as Yovel, but also counts as year 1 of the next Shemitah cycle. So technically you save years. Instead of a Yovel system being a 50-year system, it's only 49. It's really 7 times 7. Yovel is already the next Shemitah cycle. Okay, so let's go back to our calculation. We spoke about 8 Yovels, 50 apiece. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it's really 49 apiece. So you've saved yourself 8 years. You have an extra 8 years to work with. I see. Let's bring back Tamanya. Let's bring the 8 Mitamanu Yevai from those 8 Yovels. So you have 8 extra, plus the 6 change that we had before, Vahani Shis. Oh, perfect. Bingo. 6 and 8 is 14. A perfect double cycle. Havi Arbeisar. So it's 14, which comprises 2 Shemitah cycles. So the Churban occurred after all this. So 420 years gets you to the end of a cycle, perfectly at the end of a Shemitah cycle. Next year we have the Churban, year 1 of the next Shemitah cycle, perfect. Okay? So this assertion that the Churban Abayis, second time around, was on the first year of the Shemitah cycle, appears only to work according to Rabbi Yehuda. Otherwise we have 6 years left over, which gets us in the middle of nowhere. Says the Gemara, okay, that's great in terms of the timing of the second Churban. But Rabbi Yehuda, if in fact we are following Rabbi Yehuda's configuration in terms of the Yovel arrangements, we're going to run into complications regarding the first time around, regarding the Churban of the first Beis HaMikdash. Because according to the Brisa, the first Churban also occurred on that very same type of year, i.e., first year of a Shemitah cycle, which according to Rabbi Yehuda is not going to pan out. Kisanya, listen to this Brisa. So Rashi explains, we know from the Pesukim that Shlomo Melech built the first Beis HaMikdash when? At year 480 after we left Mitzrayim. Now, if we deduct for the 40 years that we were wandering the Midbar, it puts us at year 440 upon entering Eretz Yisrael. We know that the first Beis HaMikdash stood for 410 years. So how many years since entering Eretz Yisrael? How many years after we arrived in Eretz Yisrael did the first Beis HaMikdash got destroyed? 850. Now 850 is exactly 17 Yovels, right? 850 divided by 50 is 17. According to Rabban, it's exactly 17 Yovels. And in fact, that's what the Brisa says. The Sanya, Shiva Asar Yovelis, Mani Yisrael. Klal Yisrael counted 17 Yovelis, from entering until being exiled. Now, the Brisa continues, you can't say that actually the count began exactly when we entered. It must have been 14 years later. You can't say that they started counting Manu, that they started counting Mishash Nichsu upon entering into Israel immediately. Because if that's the case, then fast forward 850. 850 takes you to the end of a Yovel cycle, so it's actually on the Yovel year. Right? Because otherwise we're going to say that they began their Yovel count from year 1 upon entering Eretz Yisrael. So the Beis HaMikdash, which experienced its Churban exactly 850 years later, which is exactly 17 Yovel cycles forward, so we have the Churban on a Yovel. That's impossible. According to Yecheskel Hanavi's description of his time frame. He's standing 14 years after Churban and saying that it's a Yovel. It's impossible. I could have a Yovel 14 years apart. So it must be that we have to offset things by 14 years. There was a 14-year delay. It only began counting 14 years into the 850, in which case the Churban took place at a year 37 of a Yovel, and the Yecheskel was speaking 14 years later on the Shemitah, on year 50. Because otherwise, Nimtza Bai is Char B'tchilas Yovel, the Churban happens on Yovel, and it's not going to fit with the Pasuk that describes Yecheskel at year 14 after Churban being a Yovel. So you have to say that everything's offset by 14 years. Ella, rather, Teimehem, you have to deduct from them. Sheva Shekibshu, Sheva Shechilku, took 7 years to conquer the land, 7 years to allocate it. And only then did they begin the Shemitah Yovel count. So it's a delay of 14 years, which now works perfectly. Which gets us to our desired goal of Ba'arba'as Reishon Achar Asher Huksa'ir. That when you're standing 14 years after Churban, now it's Yovel. Okay, great. Now, Rabbi Yehuda, if we're going like Rabbi Yehuda, that a Shemitah Yovel cycle, I should say a Yovel cycle, is only 49 years in total. It's 7 times 7, and then the next year is Yovel, but it's already the beginning of the next Shemitah cycle. So of these 17 Yovels that we spoke about, based on a 50-year increment, it's really 49, so you're saving yourself 17 years. So you left over 17 years, which is 2 Shemitah cycles plus 3 years. You're at year 3 during the Churban. Stuck right in the middle. Well, nowhere. It's not year 1 of a Shemitah cycle, as per the Brayse. I see shift 3. So let's get this 17. Shift 3 Yovel from the 17 Yovels, the extra years. Shad Yahani. Add it to the Yovels, right? Each one being only 49 years plus the 17. So now we're at 17 years after a Yovel. It's exactly year 3 of a Shemitah cycle. 7 plus 3. Havali b'tlasa b'shavua. It's the third of a Shemitah cycle. So we're nowhere to be found. We're nowhere near the first year of a Shemitah cycle, as per the Brayse's description. Says the Gemara, hold it, not so quick. We're going to lose some years somehow. Hanach shnei daglinu Sancherev. We know Sancherev came up and took the Aseres Hashvatim into exile. So there was a period of time during the Beis Hamikdash's reign, that there was no majority of Klal Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael. Most of our nation was taken away. So from that point, Ad Asa Yirmiyah, until Yirmiyah went and Adrinu and restored and brought them back to Eretz Yisrael, which reinstated our population, which re-triggered and reactivated the Shemitah Yovel count. You can't count Shemitah Yovel when there's no population. Like a Chashul, so those years were not counted. So you deduct some years, in which case it works out that we end up exactly bullseye on the first year of a Shemitah cycle. We were some extra years, we deducted, and we're back on track. Iboyisem, another pshat. So this takes us back to the first kasha we had before. Second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed on Motzei Shvius, which means year 1. It's not going to work according to Rabbanon, right? Well, guess what? It could. Bryce discussed many parallels. There were things that happened, right? The first time around, it was Sunday, first year of Shemitah. It was the time of Yayaruv. It was all kinds of, right? Tisha B'Av, right? So when the Bryce refers to the second Beis Hamikdash having experienced a similar experience, replicated the first, it doesn't mean in all aspects. It means on a Sunday, like the first time. It means on Tisha B'Av. It doesn't mean the first year of Shemitah cycle. That was limited to the first time around, not the second time. So the Bryce is following the Rabbanon. The first Churban was on the first year of Shemitah cycle. That works perfectly. The second Churban was not. When the Bryce says v'chein, the word v'chein b'shniyah, the second time around, it's on the other things, on the Tisha B'Av, on the Sunday. I'll even prove it to you that it wasn't an exact replication. Because otherwise, Mishmartu she'yayarav. Bryce states that the first Beis HaMikdash was destroyed during the Mishmar v'yayarav, during that group of Kehanim who were in charge. Well, actually, they weren't around during the second Beis HaMikdash. B'shniyah miyavoy, were they even around by the second Beis HaMikdash? By the time we have a Bryce that not many Kehanim came back to Yerushalayim with Ezra. Only 4 groups came out from Golos. Yedaya, V'charim, Pashcha, V'imra, these 4 families. Not Yayarav. They weren't around. So that proves our point. That it wasn't an exact replica. So what did they do? They had only 4 families. They had to divide them to, they had 24 mishmaros, 24 rotations. So they had to take the 4 families and subdivide them. Each one of these 4 was subdivided into 6. The Navim, the Navim amongst them got up and decided, took these 4 families, put them into 24. So 6 per family. Balalam, they took their names and put them on tickets, mixed them up into a lottery, put it into the lottery box. Yedaya, so first up was a member of the Yedaya family, he picked out his family's name, and Rashi says it was Ruach HaKodesh, that all 6 tickets that he picked out were all from his family, meaning the main one and the 6 subsets. So this way they were all sort of in a row now, right? And then Charim, we took it to the next Amid. Charim, the next member of the next family, came along to determine, when they're going to be serving. He picked out his own and all the subsets, subcategories, a total of 6 within the Charim, umbrella. Likewise, it repeated itself in Pashcha and Imar. And the Navim established a rule, Shafilu Yerav. Rosh Mishmar, even if later on, eventually Yerav, the head, he was the master, he was the head Mishmar, he was the first on the list. Even if he decides to return, too late. He's not going to get his own slot. Yedai will not be pushed away from his slot. We'll let Yerav serve, but sort of under the umbrella of Yedaya. El Yedai Yedai will be considered the primary server, and they'll serve under their under his name. Yerav Tafalo, Yerav will be like the secondary, the helper. So bottom line, Yerav never was not part of the configuration. How could we say that the Churban occurred during Yerav's watch? There was no such slot. Elash Aros, you're compelled to say that the Churban the second time around wasn't an exact replication. It didn't have all the elements of the first Churban. In fact, it didn't happen on the first year of the Shemitah cycle. Rather, it happened on the Shemitah year itself, as we said before, which fits according to the Rabbanan's calculations. Rav Ashi Amar is another solution to our issue. We said that according to Rabbanan's calculations, we have 6 years past the Shemitah cycle. So the Churban occurs on year 7 and not on year 1 of the next. Rav Ashi Amar Hanach Shis Shni. Let me explain to you where those 6 years disappear. We have to deduct them, get rid of them. Okay, so that takes us back to year 1 of a Shemitah cycle. Because Ad Salak Esra Makadish like a Chashalo, the 6 years from when they started building Beis HaMikdash until Ezra came up and actually sanctified and was Makadish, and they started to count, until they were Makadish Eretz Yisrael, they were not counting Shemitah and Yavlis. So they go 6 years off the count. The Chsiv, as the Pasuk says, Badin Betelas Avidas Beis HaLakona Del B'Yerushalayim. The Pasuk continues that there was a halt. There was a work stop, a construction stoppage. They stopped the building Beis HaMikdash. The Pasuk continues until when? Until the 2nd year of Daryavish. Ad Shnas Tartin Machos Daryavish. Okay. Then it says, Uksiv, they resumed the Binyan Beis HaMikdash, and it was completed, Uksiv Shetzaya, the completion of Beis Adin, of this, of the Beis HaMikdash, Ad Yom Tlos L'Reich Adar. It was the 3rd day of Adar, the Shnas Shis L'Machos Daryavish, which was year 6 of Daryavish Malka. So we're now 5 years later. V'tana, we learned in the Brisa, V'yisa Azman L'shana Haba, next year around, Ola Ezra Gulusa, Ezra came with his entourage. And as Rashi explains, this is Chodesh HaChamishi, right? It's the 5th month, which is Av, and he only began counting the Shemitah years, the years towards the Shemitah cycle, beginning of the next year, Tishrei. So we're talking a total of 6 years, from when the Beis HaMikdash was starting to be built until now, when Ezra was Mekadesh and started counting the Shemitah and the Yovelis. So it's a gap of 6 years, which you deduct from the total count. So if we were 6 years over, now we're back to square one. And in fact, the Churban occurred on year one of a Shemitah cycle. Okay, let's recap today's daf. We had a shayla regarding the Sachem. Alone without a carbon, do they earn a shira or not? We have the Brisa describing both Churbanes occurring on the Sunday, Tisha B'Av, Motzei Shvius, which is the first year of a Shemitah cycle, during the Mishmar of Yoyarav. We analyzed the year count based on the 2 Galuyos in light of Yecheskel's description and this time reference, speaking about 14 years after Churban, 25 years into Galus. We worked that out. We substantiated the fact that the Churban Beis HaMikdash occurred on the first year of a Shemitah cycle. First time around, the second time around, and we had several ways to explain it, based on Rabbi Yehuda, based on the Rabbanon. All the numbers worked out. According to one pshat in the Gemara, second Beis HaMikdash was actually not destroyed in the first year of the Shemitah cycle, and the similarities between 2 Churbanim relate to the other elements, being Sunday, Tisha B'Av, Shibana Beis HaMikdash, Meir B'Yameinu, and Tisha B'Av will transform into a Yom Tov, L'Sas and L'Simcha, Meir B'Yameinu, Amen.